Welcome to the Drive Able podcast, where we discuss all things about driving and safer community transport for people with disabilities and medical conditions. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe to our channel and follow us on the socials. Just search Drive Able podcast on your favorite channel, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify. We're there on multiple channels now. So make sure that you search Drive Able podcast. We've got lots of interviews. Make sure you go back and listen to some of those early ones. There's some real gold in those. So please share with your friends as well, and make sure that you spread the word about this podcast. G'day, Ali.
G'day, Brad. Yeah, get that podcast out there, and you'll really want to get this one out there. This is another exciting episode. We have Jerome Wong on today. He is a wheelchair user of 12 years, but he's also a professional in the industry. He works as an engineer certifier like myself on vehicles, like certifying disabled modified vehicles, and also a business development manager and a bit of a tinkerer at problem management engineering, PME. You may have heard of the company PME on our previous podcast before. They're basically one of the pioneers and leaders of this space in hand controls and have been doing it for 30, 40 years. So it'd be awesome to basically get Jerome on and get interested in his story on a personal level, but also what's going on in the industry from his perspective and so on. So Brad, are you ready to get into it?
Oh, yeah, this should be a really good one. All right, let's get going.
Driving is something many take for granted, but when someone has altered ability, then driving or getting out and about in your own car can be challenging. Driving with a disability doesn't mean you have to drive an old clapped out car with farm-like machinery, and relying on a wheelchair doesn't mean waiting for hours and then being in the back of a maxi access cab getting car sick. The Drivable podcast is designed to introduce and explore driving aids for people with disabilities, vehicle modifications, the NDIS, research, medical guidelines, driving techniques, and much, much more. The Drivable podcast is to help you be informed and be in control of your own independence so you can experience freedom through driving safely and reliably. I'm Ali, and with me is Brad, and together we have over 30 years of experience in disability and driving. Enough of the intros, let's get into it.
Okay, in this episode we are talking with Jerome Wong. Jerome, let's kick off first by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your disability, what it actually is, how you came about it.
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Jerome, as Ali said, just from PME, and I'm T11, paraplegic. So yeah, about 12 years ago, I had a fall. It was more of a freak accident than anything kind of thing. I was just riding my motorbike down the F3 and it ran out of fuel, and I just pulled over and got off the bike, and then I stepped over the guardrail and lost my footing. And I didn't even realise that there was like a 20-metre cliff, and I just went off that. And then, I pretty busted up at the bottom of that. And it wasn't great because nobody knew I was down there or anything like that.
How long were you down there?
I just probably a bit over an hour. And one of the RMS patrol vehicle just saw me bike there, and the helmet was still sitting on the seat and the keys were in it, and then he thought something was odd because there was no one around, and then I just saw like this orange light flashing at the top of the cliff because I thought I was finished. I stayed conscious the whole time, but because I landed like kind of on my chest, and I had like all broken ribs, and I had like lacerated liver and torn aorta, and I was messed up pretty bad. But I just saw this light flashing at the top of the cliff, and I kind of yelled out to the bloke, and then he heard me eventually, and then they came and got me out from the bottom of this cliff, and then 6 months in hospital and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Wow. Just from running out of fuel.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, stuff happens. Yeah.
It's pretty ironic because I just got back from Southeast Asia, and I spent 3 months. Like I rode through 7 countries on a dirt bike, and I came back unscathed from that. And it's like you're cheating death every day, Over there, I did like 5,000 Ks on the Ho Chi Minh Trail just in Vietnam. It was and then just something simple like that, and then
Really interesting. I have a really good friend who works in an ICU hospital, and he or ICU unit in the hospital, and he was saying that you get much more stories like that than what you would expect. Like that, it's always the freak accidents, always the weird, unknown situations that cause the most amount of havoc.
Totally random.
Yeah. So it's so really interesting. And so I guess, when did you find out that you were T11? How did that progress?
Oh well, yeah, kind of like when I fell, I knew like pretty much from then. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Were you in pain?
All I wanted to do was roll over because I couldn't breathe, because I was like on my chest and had busted ribs, and I couldn't even do that. And then eventually when they got down there, and then I was just going, roll me over, can't breathe. But they're like, no, we got to stabilize you and all the rest of it. But I was like, I think it's too late for that. But yeah, basically it was, I don't know, within the day that I got there, they pretty well told me that, it was unlikely that I'd walk again.
Were you in pain?
Yeah.
Were you in? Yeah. You're in pain down there. So
Yeah.
it wasn't numb from there down. It was.
It's numb. Yeah, from there down. But yeah. The rest of me was like,
it was in pain.
Pretty bashed up as well. Yeah.
Were you also a car driver or as well?
Yeah, man. Yeah. That's part of the reason why I became a mechanic. I'm just mad for it, kind of like Bill and all the other guys at PME. We just we call it the disease. We all got the disease. There's so many bloody cars here. It just gets outrageous.
So
you were a
mechanic
beforehand?
Before the accident, right?
Yeah. So I kind of started in the industry like about 2001. So I was kind of when I finished high school, I was doing like a IT diploma, and part time I was working in a wrecking yard, and then I kind of didn't really like the IT thing, and then I decided I just want to do the mechanic thing full time. So yeah, I finished there's a network engineering diploma, and then I just went and did my apprenticeship after that. Yeah.
So when you then, I guess, after you went through the rehab process and so on, was driving, I guess, when did that come back onto the agenda?
Oh, yeah, it was like up there from the get-go, eh? I think when I was in rehab, yeah, it was kind of funny how it worked out, because I actually was friends with one of Bill's, who's my boss, his nephew, Morris, who works at PME at the time. Yeah, so I knew all about PME, and so as soon as I had my accident, it was a bit tricky, because I had a work car at the time, because it was like a service manager, like a Subaru department at Castle Hill, and then so they took the car back off me that I was driving, and then my other car was like a four-wheel drive. It was a manual, but then I had this other car under a tarp, which I hadn't even driven. It was like this old 1981 Volvo with a 5-litre V8 in it, but it was auto. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll get that one going, because it's the only auto car I got. So when I was still in rehab, I got it sent to me old work, because we used to do Scuderia Veloce, like the Volvo. So they just went over it for me and got it all like roadworthy, whatever they're doing, because it's been under this tarp for a few years. And then then I got sent straight to PME, and I did my rehab and the driving whilst I was like in rehab at the same time, because it was just like through the Royal Ride, the driving rehab there.
Yep.
So yeah, it was all in the same location, so it was easy for me.
That was Royal Rehab, you said? Royal Rehab.
Yeah, because they have the driver's centre there, as well as the rehabilitation. So yeah, I just did my kind of the perception and the cognition test there, and then they just said, you need about 10 hours with a driving instructor, and then I did that like through the Royal Rehab, And whilst I was still in the rehab, I went and sat my license again. And even like before that, I got my car dropped off at work already, and it was all modified. Oh, wait, sorry, at the rehab centre. It was all modified, ready to go.
Awesome.
And I was telling the guy, like the drive test, the testing guy, I was like, yeah, man, I'm so keen, hey, I got my car, it's all modified, it's ready to go, you know. And then I did the test, and he goes, yeah, man, like 100%, all good. And
Excellent.
yeah, and I had like a weekend leave from the rehab joint, and my mum kind of live up Central Coast a bit further, like Catherine Hill Bay. It's about kind of like 100 k's from the rehab centre. So I drove up there. Like first weekend, I got my license back. I went like I was still in the rehab joint. Yeah.
Crazy.
And it all
How
goes.
did you oh man, well, first of all, you seem like you're a bit of a go-getter. If you got it all done bloody you know, while you were in rehab. But I guess on that note, yeah, like it's very rapid, I guess, the journey that you went through. What like, is it because you had experience, or were you kind of calling the shots there and saying, "Hi, I need this stuff done"? And what made you sort of overcome that grief and get straight into it pretty quickly? Because it seems to be something that does, I guess, battle. People have to battle, like even thinking about it and getting into it. You know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I guess you go through the different stages whilst you're in hospital, and you know, 6 months is. I was on like full bed rest, like full spinal precautions for 3 months. So I had to lie completely flat for 3 months. I wasn't allowed to get in a wheelchair or nothing. Wow. So that gives you like plenty of time to kind of get your head around it. And like even prior to that, like I was pretty bad actually. So like race motocross and like BMX and all that. So I've broken heaps of bones. I done like 3 ankles. I did 2 ankles at the same time coming off of BMX. So I actually spent like 6 months in a wheelchair prior to like, doing it back. Yeah. So I was kind of almost like a veteran already. And then because one of my brother's mates that he went to school with, he also had a downhill push bike accident, and then he was like pretty high. He was like C4, I think. But then he built like Australia's quickest 6-cylinder VN Commodore, you know, twin turbos, straight to 4.2 litre, run in 8 seconds. Thing was ridiculous. And I was just like even before I broke my back, I was like, you know, it's just see him and go, like, man, that's got to be the worst situation to be in. But like, you know, he's a fair gun, this guy.
Was he doing that with hand controls?
Oh no, he couldn't drive it. So he built the car and he funded it all.
Yeah, right.
And then one of his mates would drive it because his hands would. Yeah, I mean, he could probably drive, I reckon, with a space driver gear, but yeah, I don't know.
That's a nice segue. Let's talk about where you're up to now. When you were mentioning a company all the way through what you were talking about there, that's PME. Can you explain PME to some of the listeners and your connection with PME now? Yeah, sure. So Problem Management Engineering is one of the vehicle modifiers based in Sydney. My boss, Bill Georges, he owns the joint, he's also in a wheelchair. And he's been running the PME for over 30 years, and just developing different hand controls and solutions for people with all sorts of different disabilities. So I as I mentioned before, I got my first vehicle modified with him, and I was friends with his nephew, so I kind of already had like an association with the business to a degree, like prior to my accident. So I always took my vehicles back there, and I was really impressed by the work that Bill does, to the point where, you know, when I was trying to work my way back in it, finding a job and getting back to work and that, you know, I was always hassling Bill for a job, you know, being a mechanic and that prior. But he didn't really have much work going for the first few years.
And it wasn't until about 2016 when I took another one of my cars down there, and I told him that I was doing this engineering course as well, like a few years prior to that, and then he just asked me if I completed it, and I told him that I had, and kind of what other experience I had, and he was keen to put me on. So I was actually working in the disability sector at that stage because I couldn't find anything like as an engineer, being in a wheelchair. So it was kind of pretty disheartening. Just trying to find work and all that. But then, when I got the job with Bill, I was like so stoked because for me, it kind of mixes all my different, experience in all together. Yeah, so being in a wheelchair and doing the engineering and being in the cars and the mechanic and, even the IT course, because I did a website production and management course. So I redid the course, the website for PME recently. So that was like 6 months of work. That was that was a fair undertaking. So I do like kind of all the IT, the graphics design type stuff there as well. So all our brochures and all that kind of marketing stuff. Yeah.
You got multi jobs there. You can almost run the shop.
We're super keen to. We've spoken quite highly of Bill many times in this show.
Okay, yeah.
And we're super keen to get him on. So maybe try and G him up, because the thing is,
I'll G him up.
Also, a lot of people that we've interviewed, I guess, he's one of the first guys, Bill from PME is one of the first guys in Australia that's kind of introduced hand controls and things like that. And a lot of people that we've spoken to that have been disabled for, 30, 40, 50 years, he was the only person they could get anything from. So it'd be awesome to kind of talk to him about those early days in the development of the industry. And so, if you can maybe encourage him to get interested, it'd be good. I know he gets a bit shy sometimes, but
stories about just how things were back in the 80s and that.
Because we've heard some great stories from those users. One thing I wanted to, I guess, highlight or even ask. So, I guess now that we've talked a little bit about what you do with PME and the experience that you had in terms of the rehab and the mental, I guess, journey, is there anything that you've got, any tools or tips or whatever that you give the clients that you might, because I'm sure you face clients that would not be in a positive situation mindset than you are. And as you know, and as I know, this job is half sales, half counseling, and so have you developed any tools or tips that can help people kind of get over, get through these barriers?
It's funny you say. I'm not sure. Like, I feel that most of the people that are at that stage where they're already kind of, progressing through their journey of the rehab and they want to get a license and get back on the road, a lot of them are already kind of adjusted, to their disability at that stage. So I can't say really that I found with that many customers of ours that they're really apprehensive or kind of pensive in any way of like getting behind the wheel. Sure. So there's a lot of, education about, the different controls, different solutions and the possibilities. Occasionally, we get a few guys that come in that are still real fresh, and been in their wheelchair, only maybe 6 months or a year or something like that. So, I guess, you can have a chat. I think maybe it's a bit different for me, just being like living that life and that experience. So maybe when I have these talks with the people that you see as more as a counselling thing, for me, it's probably more of just like a one-to-one, because it's almost like, brothers in arms type of thing, shared experience. So
we had that from one of the advocates. She was saying the same thing. It just helps break down that barrier.
I really enjoy it because, just being able to, deal with other people that have disabilities and just see how they're getting on in life and the different challenges. And, there's so many different stories. I think a lot of people with a disability, you've also got like a really good sense of humour, because you really need to have that, and just the patience, and you kind of just got to laugh things off, because you can't really be too serious about it all, otherwise you're not really going to get anywhere with anything, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are you still driving with the same controls as what you originally put into your Volvo?
Oh no, because that's what I was saying. I could do a bit of show and tell for you, because I got like 5 different cars here now, and they all got those. I got 5 different controls in them.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, actually.
Controls, you know,
Well,
I was gonna ask you what that was. The Brad read my mind. That was the segue into the next question.
Yeah.
What kind of controls are you using? Let's talk about the controls.
Yeah, okay. So I guess I started to begin with just with a push pull, because I really didn't know much about anything to begin with. And when I was a mechanic, I actually serviced a few cars that had hand controls on it. And then, you know, obviously, like I have to road test these cars, and then, you know, you might get a little bit curious on the road test. So I kind of had an idea of what they're all about. But yeah, I only ever thought it was just like a simple basic lever, you know, mechanical. So my first hand control was just a push pull. And I thought, oh yeah, you know, this is kind of pretty basic, you know. But then I started seeing some of the gear that was on the market after that, and then I was kind of keen to get my hands on some of the different things that are out there.
So what have you got now? What are the things that you've got in your 5 cars behind out in the shed?
So I got the car I drive is my daily. Is like I got an F6 Typhoon, so it's like the 4-litre turbo Falcon. I just got like a mechanical radial in that. It's just like a basic one. I think that radial, I've had that in about 4 or maybe even 5 different cars. I just keep swapping it over. I just put it in myself in the backyard here, and then just, you know, get Bill to certify it. But, you know, it's all done properly. Yeah, so that's got a mechanical radial, and then like my my kind of business or my interstate car, I've got like an AMG E55, like the supercharged V8. So I got the E-radial in that one, and then that's kind of like the first car I wanted to get some of the electrical stuff in. So I got the little the satellite as well. Yeah, I got one of them just to see what the wow factor was all about. But when I drive that car, probably about 90% of the time I use the E-radial anyway. And then yeah, I have my RX-7, so it's a 1989 Series 5. And that thing, it makes like 550 horsepower at the wheels. It's just ridiculous. But because I wanted to drive a manual car again, so I got that one as a manual. And yeah, we put the duck clutch in there, and it's got a ghost ring, and I designed like a secondary clutch system. So it's got the contour brake bar, and I put like another clutch lever on there, just so when you're doing hill starts or if you have to do emergency stop or something, you can still do like control the steering wheel and brakes and clutch. And then I got my Volvo. I got a Volvo. It's a 1979 242 GT. So it's like the old boxy square one, but the 2-door one. They're pretty rare. But I took the epoxy 2.3 litre out, and that Volvo that I mentioned that I had to begin with the 5 litre. Yeah, I took the 5 litre out of that, and I stroked it to 6.3, and then I put that in the other Volvo. So it's a 2-door Volvo with 6.3 litre V8, and then that's got the push pull. You know, that's actually the same push pull that was in the first Volvo. So that's my first ever hand control. So that's still kicking around. Yeah,
awesome.
And motorbike as well. I set up the motorbike. I can show you that. It's got the full like a suicide shifter. So I got a motorbike with a sidecar, and it's got 4, you know, it's manual, like 4 forward gears, and it's actually got a mechanical reverse gear. So I got like I changed the gears there with my right hand, and I clutch with the left, and I got the rear brake on the clutch.
Yep.
And I put like a special seat on there I made up with like miniature airbags and all this, because I take it off road. And I've got like all pressure sores and all this to begin with. So I've got this little big plush Harley saddle seat thing, and then mounted it on there with airbags.
How often do you ride it?
I ride it. I try to ride it a bit every now and then. Like I put 20,000 Ks on it. So
Yeah.
kind of like when I first got it, I did I did a bit of trip, and I went because when I finally got my license and all that sorted for it, and then I did a trip and went and saw all the people like I spent time with in rehab in New South Wales. So I rode up all the way up to Grafton, and then stopping like Coffs Harbour, Port Macquarie, and then I went inland to like Armidale, and then up I've got a mate who lives up near Coonabarra Brand, so I went all the way up there, like, through national parks and on dirt roads and all that kind of thing. So
mate, how do you get on and off, and how do you balance it when you come to a stop?
oh yeah, because it's a sidecar,
Oh,
so I
okay.
can roll up and then
Yep.
I can transfer on, so I can just lift myself on there.
Yep.
Pretty good with transfers, and then I'll just take my wheelchair apart, and then like from the bike, and then I'll chuck that in the sidecar.
Awesome.
And I'll chuck my swag on the back. I build a commode I take with me, and I just put the commode on the back even. And my dog, like when I got out of rehab, I got a dog, and then she that trip she was like a little pup, so I just put her in the nose cone in that bed, and she virtually like grew up in there. So like anytime I go near the bike, she just goes mad and straight in the nose cone.
Amazing.
I just go, get in your hole. Yeah.
Right,
So can I ask, because we discussed this, me and you and some other people were involved in the stuff with the RMS, New South Wales government, how they were upping arms about people changing controls. And I guess, for example, to give a bit of context, they were putting pressure on disabled people because, let's say, if they went from one type of control to another, they wanted the whole process started again. Now, you just explained to us that you use basically 5 different cars and 5 different controls. Tell me what is the kind of, how easy is it to switch between the two? Is it kind of the general philosophy of the driving is the same, or do you find you need to readjust? Like tell us about that process when you go from one car to another.
Yeah, it is a bit tricky. I guess it's the same with anything. It's like a learned skill and almost like muscle memory. And I guess some of the controls are obviously different. Like you put your hand on an E-radial, you know what that's going to do. But yeah, some of the cars I got, which is a push-pull and a mechanical radial, yeah, often I get in and I push it, when I should be pulling it, or one or the other.
Yeah.
My wife's car she got a LX 430, and I put a push-pull in that as well. So that's another one. So it's all there's all different controls. But I don't find any issue once you get used to it. It's just like anything, you can get in there and
It's like kind of accelerator.
Think about it maybe for like a minute, like this does that and that does this. Good to go.
Yeah. What about the licensing side of it all with RMS then? Because I just want to say that I'm in South Australia, and South Australia are like the RMS. They want to make sure that you are in control of a modified vehicle, and if it's got a different modification, then we've got an example of somebody that has a left foot accelerator, and then she can't get a left foot accelerator whenever she travels. This is pre-COVID, by the way, and hopefully post-COVID. So she had to pass another license test for hand controls. So she's got both of those on her license, so she can show at a licensing standard that she's in control of both. Now you've got the duck clutch as an example on your manual. Where does it sit with RMS in New South Wales for that type of thing?
Yeah, so I actually had a good discussion with driving OTs that we work with closely at PME, and there is a code in New South Wales, and it's a real broad one, and it's just called foot operated controls by hand.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one that they selected, and that's the endorsement that I have on my license.
Mm-hmm.
So
a generic one that can cover a lot of different controls.
Yeah. So we kind of had some discussion about that, and there was a particular code and then that was the description. So they didn't see any issues in changing it to that, because I mean the other thing is I have to drive a number of these different vehicles, like for work. Different controls on them as well. You know, as a certifier there as well. So I need to get that as part of my work, as well as for my own requirement.
Yeah, for any OTs listening to this and maybe new in the game for doing driving assessments, the more generic the restriction on the license, the better option it is for the future, because modifications change over time, as you've learnt through this podcast. Hopefully, if you've been listening in, there's lots of different modifications on the market, and it's about finding the best solution for you, whether it's right hand versus left hand versus if you've got partial function in your arms or whatever it may be. But with the changes over time, having a generic restriction on your license can make a massive difference to what's available, as you've explained, Jerome. Yeah. So I know that we're probably running out of time. Have you got videos at all of you in your car at all that you could share?
I need to take some. I haven't really. I got a real brief one that my brother took whilst I was just driving it with an iPhone. But I've been meaning to do it. So when I get around to it, I can I'll put it on YouTube and I can tag you in it.
Oh, that would be,
maybe that'll be good. Get a couple of videos. This could be a G up to get you going with the videos.
Yeah. Well, I got a video I made just for myself with the bike. I could probably send you that. Yeah. I discovered something really funny when I was riding it as well, because I put a GoPro on the back of the sidecar, and my dog, she sits in the seat and she sees the corners coming and she like leans into it before the corners even come.
That's like, awesome.
Yeah, you have to go in some races, where they hang out the side and just put your dog on there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Even if you have any like promo videos or even web pages from PME that have the products that you've spoken about in today's episode,
we got
please send them through, because then we can, because it'll just be good for people to be able to, like, I guess, put a picture to the description, if that makes sense.
Oh, I can show you right here. The car's off.
Yeah, show us here today, but it'd be good to just put some links up onto the webpage so people can do a bit more research as well.
Yeah.
If you can show us while here, that'll be great.
So what we'll do, everyone, is we will put, if you want to see this, make sure that you go and, there's the RX-7. If you wanted to see this, make sure you go and look at this on the YouTube channel, because we save these to YouTube as well. So you can see Jerome in person, and now you can see his cars. But also what we will do is put links to these in the show notes. So the links to PME, any other videos that Jerome sends through, we'll put those in the show notes. So make sure that you click the links below. All right, give us a tour, Jerome.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so it's a RX-7. Big turbo on it.
That's massive.
It's right on E85 as well. Watch out. It's the motorbike there. I'll show you the hand controls on that in a sec.
So how do you like, if you get on the motorbike, do you take your wheelchair with you?
Yeah, I put it in the sidecar. Yeah.
Okay, you put it in the sidecar. Okay. Oh, yeah, there's those controls.
So these are controls I was mentioned.
So that's the push brake, and you've also got a ghost ring on there, which is an accelerator behind the steering wheel. So that's left and right there.
You can hear the motor going, because we had to put an electronic throttle on it as well, because this car doesn't have one. So this one here does the clutch.
All right.
So I got two clutches, because I figured, like, if it needs to do an emergency stop, and then you can just grab that, because the other clutch is on the gear stick here.
Yep.
So, if you had to do an emergency stop, you're not going to be able to brake, pull the clutch in, and steer at the same time. Yeah. So
awesome.
That's very smart.
One, yeah.
Is that an electronically actuated clutch?
Yeah. So it's
what's the delay? What's the lag?
Oh, it's not. It's obviously not as quick as if you were to just jump on it with your foot. So it's not bad though.
But you got to just get used to it.
Sometimes when you're changing up gears, when you're pulling it out of gear, you kind of, because you can pull it out of gear real quick normally, you got to just like wait a slight bit for it to disengage. But other than that, it's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting
So,
used to it, I guess.
Yeah, so it's got electronic power steering on it, this car as well. So that's you can steer without the engine running even. So it's got electronic power steering, electronic throttle, and electronic clutch. That's 1989. It's even got CAN bus in it. Running the engine management.
Yeah, I was going to say that doesn't look like a 1989 Dash.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the Mazda. And then I'll show you. Show the bike. Wait, hold on. Yes, it's a Ural. It's made in Russia.
Yeah, you look
Kinda
like you're on the Great Escape.
Yeah. It's kind of like a knockoff of the BMWs that the Nazis had in World War II. The Russians took the tooling from their factory afterwards, and like after the war, and built them in Russia. So I changed the gears, just like with this. It's full mechanical, and then that's this one. You can put it in a reverse, and then it's got the two levers there, one for the clutch and one for the brake, and it's a seat I've built, so it's kind of cantilevers at the front there, and then it's got the two airbags on the back.
Yeah, wow.
You might not be familiar with it, Brad, but I mean, you might heard of like the Wadigans. There's like a state forest, not far from where I live, so I kind of go up and play around in there in the dirt, in the mud. That's like what I used to do before I had the accident, was just do all the dirt biking and the motorbike touring.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that bike goes all right through all the mud?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can actually get a two-wheel drive version of it.
Yeah, right.
But when I bought this one, they hadn't worked it out, because in Australia and I think in UK as well, and South Africa, they got to have the sidecar on the left, whereas all the rest of them, the sidecar's on the right. Mm-hmm. So that's how the two-wheel drive setup works with the sidecar on the other side. Yeah, but
it sounds pretty good.
We could have a massive tour of your garage there, but we do need to wind it up.
Yeah.
So
thanks very much.
Thank you for showing us around your yard. We do ask everybody one final question, but you've given us so much insight, so you mightn't be able to answer it. But the final question that we ask everyone that we interview is that we know that cars are more than just getting from A to B. Is there something that you do that's unique in your car, or something that's a little bit unusual that nobody else kind of really knows about, and is a bit unique to your story?
Okay. Well, I lived in the back of my car for 9 months.
Oh, did
Sounds
you?
really ghetto, but it was not ghetto, because I've probably driven in through more countries like with hand controls than possibly anyone else like on the planet. No shit. I shouldn't swear. Yeah, I've driven across 60 different countries with hand controls. Yeah, so on this trip, because I've done a few trips. Like I drew the first trip I did, like I started in the UK and drove all the way down the Sahara, and then from there to the Nordkap, which is like the very top of Norway in the Arctic Circle. So that was like in 2010, the year after my accident.
Wow.
But then, like in 2014, my wife and I, we built a troop carrier here, and then we shipped it. We put it in a container, and then we shipped it to the UK, and then we flew over there, and then we just drove like east through Europe, and then like through Germany, Poland, and Latvia, then into Russia.
Ali, what do you reckon? Should we get him back on and do another podcast about this trip around?
Yeah, I reckon we should do that. That'd be awesome.
We did all of Central Asia and like Turkey, Azerbaijan, Georgia, all these red hot, Albania, been all sorts of red hot countries. Yeah, drove across them all.
Audience, if you're listening to this and you want to hear Jerome's story of traveling around the world with his hand controls and car and so forth, make sure that you let us know with thumbs up or likes or shares or put a comment in the show notes. I reckon we might get you back on, Jerome.
That sounds
Yeah.
really good.
Sounds like fun. Okay.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, a massive thank you for you. Thank you
problem.
very much for joining us. Like I said earlier, what we'll do is we'll put some links to PME so people
Yep.
know where you work and the types of things that you're doing there at and Bill are doing there at PME. And yeah, if you've got any other videos of yourself taking that bike for a spin or any of your other cars there, make sure you share them with us and we'll
Yep.
put links through to them.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, that was awesome.
If people want to get in PME in contact with you, is it just best to contact PME?
Yeah, it's best to just look us up on the website and then just give us a buzz.
All right.
And you can definitely tell now these guys know what the hell they're doing. So yeah, go talk to them.
Come on, mate.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. What we do now is we, Ali and I, say goodbye to you, and for our listeners, hang around because what we're going to do is reflect on our 3 biggest takeaways. So, Jerome, thanks very much, and listeners, will see you again in a second.
Thanks, Jerome.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
All right, cheers.
All right. Thank you very much to Jerome for being with us for this interview. This is the section where we reflect on Ali and my 3 key takeaways. And the first takeaway that we want to reflect on is his zest for adventure. He's a man who doesn't let anything really stand in his way.
Yeah, I thought that was a common theme we're starting to see a little bit, that kind of like the people that seem to push themselves. I'm even thinking of Mitch Stone, the footy guy in the boat. The people that seem to push themselves through these kind of weird and wonderful adventures that you wouldn't typically associate with a spinal cord injury or a wheelchair user. It just seems to leak into other parts of their life in terms of success. So it's kind of like push through these barriers and then they will help in other parts of their life, and it's a really good thing. Get out there and get some adventure.
I love the fact that he had the hand controls before he even passed his test. He had it already installed into his car and ready to go before he even passed his test. He's a man. He's a go-getter, and push Bill into employing him at PME there as well. But then. Well, hopefully we get him back on and we can talk to him about his adventures around the world in driving all over the place. I'm excited to have him back on for that.
Yeah, but get out there and take risks, I guess, because that's what it's all about. Calculated risks and adventure is a good one. So
yeah.
And I guess moving into the second one, I thought the fact that he had multiple modifications was awesome on 5 different cars, 5 different modifications, 5 different types of hand controls. And it really sings true to what we both stand for on a personal and professional level, but also what we really harp on about this show. It's get out there and try different things because, Jerome has one particular disability and he's one guy, but he needs 5 different applications for 5 different vehicles, right? And that's a perfect example of that a manual push-pull works in one vehicle for this guy, but doesn't work in the other one. He needs something else, an electronic thing, and so on and so forth. So it really highlights that individuality of not just the person, but also the vehicle and person combination.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a very big OT thing about matching the person, the disability, and what they actually want to achieve. It's called the PEO model for people that want to look that up. It's huge. And he's taken that to its full advantage there with the multiple cars that he has. We don't need to be restricted to one car. Now, there is something else that we need to reflect on. You need to check with your local government, your local driving authority in regards to what that means for licensing, because each state around Australia and around the world for that matter has different regulations of what that would mean. So make sure that you check with your local Department of Transport, whether it's the RMS, whether it's the Department of Transport and Infrastructure here in South Australia or wherever it is around Australia. Make sure that you check it out to make sure that you have the right information for you, and make sure you just don't go modifying a car and then get pulled over by the police for whatever reason, and then have to explain yourself and get through that trouble. Make sure you check first. before you go.
And on that note of the OT, I guess, feedback, and it's even same with modifiers. It's interesting, I guess, and we've highlighted this before. Don't just look at the product, look at the whole environment. And it's also the vehicle, the people, and everything like that, because you might do a trial in a push-pull hand control in, someone's demo car and it works. Then they go fit that into their own car, completely different setup angles, everything like that. So you may not be able to trial it in their car, but you need to at least look at that car and say, hey, that's the environment we're going to put this product in. Is it going to work in that environment as well? So
100%. Yeah, OTs, make sure that you listen to that bit of advice. Just because they did their assessment in the driving instructor's car doesn't mean that it's going to fit in their car. So make sure that you take that on board. I mean, that AMG, I'm not sure that would go too well with the mechanical push-pulls. Maybe it would, but that electronic e-radial, that's going to have a much nicer feel and a much better impact on the electronic accelerator that's in there. So
well, especially with those things, you need to program the curves, because otherwise the acceleration, otherwise you're going to have an accident straight away. With those V8s, too much revs with those hand controls. So exactly, that's the whole thing.
So lots of things on that final point there, but that leads us into our third takeaway, is that you don't need to be restricted to an auto. And Jerome there is a classic example. I mean, he pushes the limits, and he's a mechanic nut, and has a big interest in motor vehicles, but he's driving a manual, even though he can't use his legs on the pedals. He's got modifications in there with the duck clutch, and then a second duck clutch on his actual brake lever as well, which is something that I haven't seen before. That I've learned something new there for any future clients for me. But driving a manual, but then he's also taken that further and has got his motorbike license back as well. And there's lots of modifications for motorbikes that can be explored.
Yeah, and he's doing everything. Like, he's doing dirt riding, and the motorbike is like proper old school motorbike, as you see in the video. It's got all the gears and everything like that. It's all been properly set up. So yeah, it's great, I guess, to see that you can push those limits and drive pretty much whatever you want. It's there. You just got to push those limits.
Yeah, and that leads us into our takeaway line, doesn't it, Ali?
Yep.
As we say in every episode, if you've got any queries about what you can do and what will work for you, make sure you get in contact with your local OT or mobility dealer and set yourself up with a trial. And that might actually be PME. And make sure that you check them out and check the links out in the show notes. Because PME have been around for many years, and hopefully one day we'll talk Bill on to coming on and joining us and having a chat to what it was like in the early days there. But trials really do put you in the driver's seat. So we'll see you in the next episode.
See you next time. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Drive Able podcast with Brad Williams and Ali Akbarian. If you like what you've heard, make sure you like, rate and subscribe. It really does make a massive difference. If you or anyone you know would like to share a story about driving with a disability, or you would like to get in contact, find the show notes, or find the resources mentioned in this episode, you can find us on Facebook. Just search @Drive Able Podcast for more information.